fighting for? Why can't people help people? That's the question.
Oh my gosh, it's people helping people!
Tonight's episode of People Helping People Live is sponsored by Mike Silkowski. He's your local partner in getting your message in front of the right people. Mike specializes in helping businesses right here in Southern Arizona reach their ideal customers through TV and streaming services. He's not just sponsoring this chapter 3 of People Helping People, he's building partnerships, and he doesn't succeed unless you do. If you're ready to grow your business with someone who's invested in your success, call Mike at 515-305-5311. Again, that's 515-305-5311. This episode of People Helping People Live is sponsored by T-Town Boxing, Tucson's home for boxing, kickboxing, and recovery classes for all ages. From kids to adults, beginners to experienced fighters, T-Town Boxing offers a space to grow, train, and challenge yourself. So if you're ready to push your limits and join an amazing community, reach out to T-Town Boxing on Instagram at instagram.com/T-Town or their website, boxingtucson.com. Again, that's instagram.com/T-Town or their website, boxingtucson.com. This episode is sponsored by the Diabetes Network of Arizona, a community built by people living with type 1 diabetes for people living with type 1 diabetes. They host Arizona's only family camp for type 1 diabetics, giving kids and family a place to connect, learn, and feel understood. Every dollar raised stays right here in Arizona, helping local families get the care and supplies that they need. No one should ever face diabetes alone, and with your help, they don't have to. You can make a difference today by clicking the donation link in the description. The Diabetes Network of Arizona, building a stronger, healthier Arizona together. Let's get back into the episode.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another amazing episode of People Helping People. Yeah. Come on, man. Feels good. Feels good. And I'm very, very excited for this episode. And if it is your first time joining us, welcome. This is indeed a live show, so you have an opportunity to be a part of the podcast. If you have questions for myself, questions for the guest, jump in. Leave those questions in the comment box. I'll be sure to bring them up during the show. And I'm just so excited to be here. It's Halloween time. We got a little bit of Halloween colors in the background here. We're getting this new studio set up right. I hope everybody's having a beautiful day and getting a little festive out there. So this evening we have an incredible guest for you guys, and I'm so excited for what's to come. Let's see here. Our guest today, he is not only a podcaster himself, and I've been really enjoying his podcast, listening to it since we started talking, and he's just a very interesting character. He's very curious in so many different ways, and I love the way that he articulates and asks questions, and he is joining us all the way from New Zealand. And so I'm just so excited to have him on the show. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's welcome our guest to tonight's show, our friend, Lee David. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Hello, brother. How are you?
Oh, I'm so good, man. Life is good. You know, there's no other way I'd rather spend a Halloween than sitting in studio and having a great conversation with someone.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, no, I'm looking forward to tonight's conversation. I really am. It's nice to be on the other side of the microphone, you know. So yeah, no, I'm keen.
Yeah, it is so interesting to take off your interviewer hat and be interviewed. I just recently did some radio shows, and being able to just sit back and let them guide, it's really a breath of fresh air. So I appreciate you stepping in. And again, I want to let the audience know, being that you're all the way in New Zealand, we do have a little bit of delay between what I'm saying and what you're hearing, and what you're saying and what I'm hearing. So there may be some pauses in our conversation this evening. So everybody bear with us. But for the people that don't know, Lee, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, well, where to start? I suppose at the moment, I am, well, you may be able to tell, I'm not originally from New Zealand. I'm originally from a little town just outside Manchester in the north of England. Lived in New Zealand for just over 15 years now. I am a single dad of two teenagers, 18-year-old daughter, 14-year-old son, both of them who keep me on my toes and pretty active. In my day job, I am a social worker. I work predominantly with youths who are involved in offending behaviors, as well as family systems, that kind of thing. I'm a qualified counselor. I offer counseling services and external supervision services. I tend to work predominantly with middle-aged guys, cut from the same cloth, I suppose. Yeah, other than that, I'm a surfer, dad to a cat. Just I feel like I've got quite a lot packed into a day,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I'd love to unpack quite a few things here, because I feel like you're a very interesting individual with your life path and how you found purpose and service of others. And it's such a common thread within this show, is how people have found that purpose. So let's kind of pull the story back. Let's look behind the curtains of how you started to find your role in helping others to find themselves and finding their purpose. Can you walk me through that?
Sure. Well, I sort of came to this probably only about 10 years ago. Prior to that, I suppose I was very dysfunctional in a lot of the ways I approached things. So if I can take it right back. Now, I grew up, typical working class north of England home. The thing that sort of a bit of a shadow, yeah, my sister and I were subject to some pretty harsh physical abuse, I would say, from my mum. And it's one, I don't know. I mean, it's only with age that I can unpack that a lot more. As a kid, you've got no frame of reference to understand things. I mean, now I do think my mum was probably going through a lot, and what have you. And this was a time when people didn't talk openly about mental health, about what we were struggling with. It was always behind closed doors. But yeah, I mean, that was what it was. I mean, I'm not making excuses for it, but I think now I've sort of come to, obviously a path of forgiveness through my own professional work, my studies, and also the self work I've done on myself. I've done quite a bit there with regards to therapy. So yeah, I grew up rather, well, I want to say a shy kid. That might not be exactly right. I had a lot of front. I sort of projected very cocky, as though everything was rosy in the garden. But somebody just needed to say the wrong thing to me at whatever moment, and I was in tears. I was in bits. And as a kid, you don't know how to deal with these things, how to think it through. And I had obviously nobody teaching me this emotional intelligence, and I suppose there wasn't really a market for it throughout the 80s. And that, I suppose that carried on for quite a while. I mean, yeah, I struggled making friends. I was very closed off, and I got to a point where, like, I just really, I don't know, I was in a lot of pain. Yeah, there was a lot of self harming and things like that going on behind closed doors, and yeah, it was just a strange time. And then not long after that, I began to work in kitchens. I started, I'd been to college training up to be a chef, and it was like something flipped over in me from being this kid who had no power, who was, really, really quite closed off. I became, yeah, a bit of a bully because I could. All of a sudden, I had this power that I had, no, I wasn't used to it at all. It was but a weak person's interpretation of strength, yelling at people, bossing people around, being, I don't know, trying to be some kind of alpha male that I thought I should be. And yeah, I mean, I had very little self awareness, walked around as though, I was something special. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think I look back now, I suppose quite embarrassed about a lot of the behaviors. But then again, I've had time to think, well, you didn't know any better at the time. You don't know what you don't know. And so yeah, I mean that I just became, I suppose I have these tantrums that were in a man's body at that time. And then the happiness was still there behind the mask. And this I tried to soothe or block out, whether that was with drinking, with, lines of coke, with buying things that I couldn't afford, all of these little, modern day things we used to numb our pain. That was it. And then after that, well, I met my now ex-wife, and yeah, I mean, then I sort of got to the point, I suppose I went through life just thinking that wisdom will naturally come. I'll get older, I'll amble through life, and I'll just know things. I'll just end up being smart on the other side of it. And so, yeah, we moved in together, we got engaged, we got married, my daughter was born. But I was doing these things I see now. I was wrong. I mean, I was honourable in my intentions, but I think I was doing it because that's just what you do. Do you know what I mean? That's, I suppose, that task focused view to life.
Absolutely.
Um, but then, yeah, born, that that was the first catalyst for change in me. Insofar as I had never known, I suppose I'd never known love so pure. I just looked at her and I adored her from the minute I saw her. And then I suppose that gave me a purpose, if you like. I want this little girl to, I want her to be safe. I want her to be happy. But I also want her to look at me as though this is what a good guy should be. So I suppose I had the idea, but not the tools at that point.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I mean, if I can, yeah, then I fast forward a couple of years from there. I mean, yeah, my marriage was pretty rocky because we weren't good at communicating. Like my ex, her own damage as well. And we just clashed and didn't know how to deal. And then we ended up, we made contact with, she had all this family in New Zealand that she was hitherto unaware of. We made contact, came for a holiday, and absolutely loved it. So, yeah, we came over here, and at the time, I was sort of like, yeah, I'm done with England. I'm sick of England. England's awful. It wasn't that. What it was, I think I was pinning all my hopes on the next thing. It was that, or things will be all right, or things will be better when I get to do this. So, yeah, I was putting a lot of pressure on New Zealand to just sort of be the panacea for everything, for all the, I don't know, anger, sadness, disappointment, whatever it is that I was feeling that I still couldn't put a label on. And so yeah, we did a few years, and it was hard because there was no government assistance. I had to work in the same job because I came over as a chef. I was stuck in this job. I really didn't like it, and because they had power over me with regards to visa and that, my wages weren't good, my hours were long, and that just added to this feeling of, whatever it was inside. Anyway, after not long after that as well, my son came along, totally unexpected. Things in my relationship still were not great. And it was one of them, if you look at it, just the wrong time. Housing wise, we were all over the place. Literally a couple of days before we landed in New Zealand, there was a massive earthquake as well. And then a few months after, another devastating earthquake. So there were a lot of flux in my life and around us. And then I suppose after a couple of years, my wife then said to me, look, I've seen this job. I want to go for it, but it would mean you stepping back and being the house husband. So sign me up. I want to do something else anyway. At this point, not sure what. So it gave me a bit of a pause so I could look for study options. And I thought I wanted to be a counsellor of some sort. I think, like I said before, when moving to New Zealand, I bought into this green oasis of a place where everyone's nice and it's always sunny and all that. And there's a lot of positives. I genuinely do love living here. But like anywhere, you scratch the surface and there's problems. There is, a high rate of family harm. There's quite a big drinking culture and very high rates of male suicide. So this was something that when I read about it, it shocked me a bit. And so I thought, well, I wanted to try and be the ambulance at the top of the hill, as it were. I mean, in kitchens, I'd met a lot of guys who were just burnouts. They were the ones that as soon as service finished, they were always on the beer until 3 o'clock in the morning. Their relationships had fallen apart, working long hours, these kind of things. And I thought, well, maybe, I don't know, I felt a bit of an affinity, sort of like I had some kind of lived experience, what it were, that I could put that to use and maybe help. And so I talked to somebody nearby and he suggested social work. He said, going into counselling as an entry level, it's very niche and you won't get paid very much. But social work, it opens more doors and there's different areas in which you can work. So I thought, well, that makes sense. I'll give that a go. And that's where the light started to come on, because this guy said to me, he says, these studies will change you. And he wasn't wrong. That I was reading through and it was just like jigsaw puzzles slotting into place. I was reading these psych papers, things about, say, attachment theory and a mother wound and all of this sort of thing. And I was like, wow, that's me. I do that. I do this. And I started then, I was loving the study I was doing to become a social worker, but it sent me down so many other paths for learning for my own edification. I'd read extra on all these things and no means it was the complete article, but it started me thinking and it started me healing in a lot of ways. Now fast forward that, I did my studies and I started working with young kids in schools. And I also started to see a lot of patterns that I recognized. You'd have a kid that might be acting out in class that previously hadn't been. And I'd get a parent come to me and say, right, fix my kid. He's not not the A-star boy. You know, I don't know what's wrong with him. We got him this bike and we got him this PlayStation. And I talked to the kid more, and they might want connection with the parents. They might, there were a myriad of things. But it just sort of, I suppose, highlighted that we want the easy, quick answer too often. Oh, little Johnny's doing this, so we do this, and everything stops, when it's never that simple. And at the time, I saw a quote, and it said, "Be the adult you needed when you were a child."
Ooh,
And that's stuck with me like 10 years later.
that's so good.
And
That's so good.
yeah, that just sort of put me in. And I'd been to a therapist previously, and she said something like, she was trying to do this inner child work. I mean, at the time, I wasn't ready to take this on, but it was something, she said, if you could, shut your eyes, ball yourself up, look at this kid, and what would you tell him? And even then, like in this therapist, I started crying for them. It was, yeah. And that took me back to that statement that I would love to go back and just put an arm around that little kid and say, look, man, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
And
I
yeah,
think that is such a relatable thing amongst so many different people. Thank you for sharing all of that, by the way, because I love to hear the arc. I love to hear the stories of how people come to being in those positions of purpose and finding their meaning. And you mentioned some incredible things there that I want to dive into. As far as you becoming a counselor and realizing that being the adult that the kids that you yourself needed or that these kids need is just such a commendable mindset to have. And I think that that is so important because I think that we as adults are all just kids stuck in adult bodies. All of these belief systems that were instilled, all of these rules that were put in place, whether we're being too loud or we're not loud enough or we're too social or not social enough. And we have all these social constructs in our life that are just pulling us to not allow ourselves to be who we need to be. And then as we get older, we forget about all of those things and how they've broken us and not allowed us to fulfill who we can be or who we need to be to nurture ourselves as individuals, to nurture the people around us and our relationships. So I'm curious, as a counselor now, and finding these kids that maybe live in broken homes or these constructs that are given to them from their parents or families or otherwise, or even school itself. What are some of the discovery questions that you ask these kids? How do you get them to open up and understand what they're going through?
Well, I think the first thing I needed to learn was to take my time, in that kids don't, well, a lot of the kids I work with, especially, they've got an inbuilt bullshit filter. I'm, to them, in the first instance at least, I'm just one in a long line of professionals, the guy that shows up with a lanyard and some optimism and a bag load of questions. Now, these kids, they probably told their story to so many people, and I think people forget how hard it is each time in all this stuff and going through it. So, to begin, it's usually, I'm not even asking about any of that. It's who are you? What do you like? And on another relatable note, a lot of them don't know. And this is when myself, I did have a point later on in life where, it was, I genuinely didn't know who and what I was about. I know I suppose it's a bit of a twee phrase, but that finding yourself, I think, is massive. And that I'll spend as much time with the kid talking about what they're into, what spins their wheels, and then other things I'll drop into conversation. a lot of times it works in the car because you're side to side rather than face on.
Ooh,
Because
wow.
I suppose a lot of time, especially when it's young kids, I think we forget as adults how big and imposing we can be.
Mm.
So I want to talk to a kid who's 5, 7, whatever, then we'll sit down, or I'll drop to one knee. So I'm at the same height, so we can look in the eye on an equal level, and it just takes something out of it.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, the thing is, I find quite sad about the services that are on offer, the brief interventions. It's basically right, you've got 6 sessions to get all your answers. Otherwise, that's it. And it might take the majority of that before a kid will even trust me a little bit. Because I think the kids, they've been let down by so many people. Their trust is shattered. And they don't have the frame of reference to say, no, you are a bad person. You are a good person. That kind of thing.
Mm.
Another one, I suppose, again from the bag of one-liners that I've got, an abused child doesn't hate that parent. The abused child hates themselves.
Mm.
And that's another one, again, I can relate to. And I suppose it informs how I am with these kids. I don't know them. They're the expert on their life as such as it is. But if I can approach it in that way, that whatever it is they're feeling, it's coming from a place of pain.
Mm.
And bear in mind, like, I know they're little kids, but some of them are just really obnoxious, really rude, really, but this is how the behaviors are presenting. Either they've had it modeled or it's a way of keeping people at arm's length.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, to circle back to the original question, it is very much softly, and keep trying to remind myself why I'm there in the first place. Because a social worker's never there when you're having a good day.
Mm.
We're not there as when everything's going right.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well said. Thank you for sharing that. And there's so many things that you brought up there that I'm thinking about my past now, and some of the moments in my life when I went from, the class clown and having fun and being the center of attention in that way to the rebellious era of my life. 12 to 13 years old, when you get into middle school, and then all of a sudden, you're finding cigarette butts and ashtrays and skating off into just wreaking havoc. But I also look at the situation in which my family was constructed during that time, and it makes sense when I look back. And I'm thinking about all of this live right here. I'm having like these epiphany.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm having an interesting time looking back at maybe why I was doing that. And like you said, it was a bit of a shield. It was a way to shield myself from the things that I was feeling and didn't necessarily know how to express those things, amongst being involved with the wrong groups of people, being drawn to things that maybe my family wasn't, in order to feel validation, or there's 1,000 different terms that I was looking for at that time. But I would like to talk a little bit about how you started to heal yourself. We are just children and grown men, grown adult bodies, and we're still dealing with, like we said, still dealing with all these things. Was it through your studies that you started to be like, these light bulbs went off?
Yeah, that started me off. And yeah, like I said, I was doing the studies, and yeah, my marriage was still not good. Our relationship was just, really dysfunctional. We'd blow up at each other, and then we just didn't know how to deal. So it was, I don't know, it was easier to distract myself with study and other things, because I didn't yet know how to deal with the other stuff stuff, or it meant asking myself some hard questions that maybe I didn't yet want the answers to. But I do remember one day just thinking, this can't be my life. This can't be all it is. Because at the time I felt quite, I don't know. It was like all I was doing was just existing. I was going to work. I was paying bills. I was doing some housework, looking after kids. And, I don't want to sound awful when I say that, but, you have your own sort of existential things going on. And I don't know, I didn't feel happy. In whatever sense that is. I know we can't always be at this like high level of positive all the time, but I just felt maybe unfulfilled might be a better word. And yeah, in the end, it got to a point where I ended up saying to my ex, then I said, look, I can't do this anymore. We separated. Then yeah, well, that's a funny story in and of itself. That was February 2020. So I moved out so that the kids quite young could see that we were separating, but then COVID happened. And that threw everything upside down. So I ended up having to move back into the house. And I was classed as an essential worker at the time. I was working with like chronically homeless people. So we were going out onto the streets, getting homeless people and putting them into motel rooms and things like that. Because at the time, the world went crazy. Nobody knew what was going on. And then I'd get home, again, very stressed out, very strung out, because I was in some situations. My ex was at home. She'd been at home with the kids all day, getting a bit tense there. I'd walk in and then she'd just unload on me. And it was wrong time. Anyway, not long after we got out of that, I got my own place. And that very day, my brother committed suicide, which... again, as you can imagine, it was massive. I can't even describe. But luckily, I'd got a place of my own, so the kids came to stay with me because it was the mum's brother. While she dealt with things, and yeah, that's. I suppose a friend of mine came round and we were talking, and he said, you've got step one of your life now. What are you going to do? And that's what I'm saying. Like, I genuinely didn't know. I felt through my life, I'm such a pleaser. I'd been the guy that sort of fitted in with other people. Even though, like I could be quite aggressive, it was always somebody that I knew, dominate in a way, not necessarily physically, but with what I was saying, wise, I avoided conflict if it meant somebody holding me to account. And I don't know, I just sort of thought, wow, I don't even know what I am. I just thought I felt at the time like, I don't think I've had an original thought in my head. And so I sort of started out, I met somebody and she was telling me about like the, Institute about values, things like that. So I really threw myself into the world of self-help. But then what I ended up doing is, rather than using it to spark discovery, I just sort of read these books, swallowed it wholesale, and then adopted this as an identity and thought, all right, this is me healed now, when in reality, I'm just parroting somebody else's and nothing had changed. So after I ended up, after a while, a friend of mine encouraged me to get on the dating apps. And wow, that was a real eye opener in a lot of ways. I mean, I'd not been in that game for 20 years. And so I wasn't used to rejection. I wasn't used to this quick fire, right swipe, left swipe, all the rest of it. And there's nothing like a relationship to highlight your insecurities, your flaws, all of this.
Well said.
And it was, I thought, right, I've had 6 months out of it. Yeah, I'm healed. I'm all right. And I fully believed that I was, but I was nowhere near. And after a couple of sort of mishaps, I ended up in a relationship with someone. Now, she was much further along in the, recovery game. And she very much highlighted where I was sort of falling short, for want of a better phrase. And so I ended up visiting a psychotherapist. I thought I want to dig under, get some, I suppose some answers, some guidance maybe. And yeah, she then, I suppose, had me looking at things in a different way, asking hard questions of myself and admitting sometimes, or in many times, I was the problem, but not in a way. Whereas in the past, if I'd say that, I'd go into a bit of a self-pity spiral. This was, again, you don't know what you don't know. These behaviors, they protected you or they helped you at this time in your life. But now they're constricting you. Like the, metaphor of a snake shedding its skin. You don't end up strangling you. And that's what it was doing. And so looking at it from that perspective, that's when I think I actually started, to give myself a break. Because up until that point, I'd held myself to such high account. Any mistake, you can't lie to yourself about your own mistakes. Couldn't run away from them. And I would be very harsh on myself. Whereas this gave me a bit of language to be able to say, you're allowed to make mistakes. These things that happen to you are not your fault. These things that you've done down the years, a lot of which came from either a place of pain or a place of not knowing, or just a place of not knowing yet. It's okay. And I don't think I ever had anybody in my life to say it's okay because now we move on and we try again. And that, these just blew my mind. And trying to give myself the same, I don't know, the same love I say I would give to my kids. My kids mess up. It's fine. It's on, don't worry. Let's have another go. And doing that for myself at 45 years old was, it was quite the thing. But I know that I'm probably the happiest I've been. And it was I suppose once you start learning these things, you realize that how much you don't actually know. And I'm all right with that now. I'm just taking things as they come. It's all right. Today might be a shit day, but there's tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Giving yourself a little bit of grace, and it's so much easier said than done in practice to look at yourself. I mean, we are all our own worst critics, and we are all the epitome to our own downfalls, no matter what. But taking that accountability and saying, you know what, these thought processes, this train of thoughts that I continue to have every time XYZ happens, this is leading to this emotion, which can in turn physically change you and alter you. It can develop into diseases and all these other things. Like there's a laundry list of things that happen from somebody having this self-doubt in not taking accountability and saying, okay, I got to give myself some grace. And I love what you said there is showing yourself the same amount of love and grace that you would give your own children. That's a beautiful way to look at that. That is so important. And again, in practice, not as easy because of those loops that we're so used to hearing in our heads, and they just replay and replay and replay. And it really does take work. It takes so much work. But to hear that you've pulled yourself out of that and you're at least in tuned and taking accountability for those things, good on you. I got to give you one of these.
Thank you.
And now you're here advocating. Now you're here advocating for young men and women as well to do the same and counsel them to, take accountability and to find paths out of those tumultuous paths of thinking. And I feel as though it's not common for people to be able to pull themselves out of that. So again, I have to tip my hat to you. And I wanted to talk a bit about discovering your communication style, because you touched on you're having this relationship that is kind of crumbling because of a lack of good communication. This is a two-part question. One of which, what does good communication look like to you now? And the other part is, when did you start to change your communication style and implement that in relationships and otherwise?
I suppose for me, good communication now, I value honesty more than anything, insofar as if you give me the information, then I can deal with that. Even if it's something I don't want to hear. Now, I suppose this is something where it has been tied back to my young years insofar as look at you expect to be loved, parent hurts you on the other side. There's a so I don't, I suppose, how can I put it? I don't trust easily. And honesty is a massive, massive step towards that. So for me, let me know what it is that you want, what's going on, why it's happening, all of these things, and then I can give an informed answer and we will move on quite well. I suppose this is sometimes how I try now to come across to others, in that like I say, with the kids that I work with, they don't trust easily either. So I make sure I don't promise anything that I can't deliver. I say I'm going to show up at 2:00 on Tuesday. I'm there at 2:00 on Tuesday. You say you want this to happen, whatever it is. Unless I have this thing to give, I will not promise. I will do my best. I suppose that's under promise and over deliver is how I try and work. Because again, it's easy to use kids as an example, but I think we all value that consistency, knowing where you stand. And so I think that's probably the best respect I can give to somebody, whomever they are.
Absolutely.
I will walk it like I talk it.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, I suppose that's the first instance. And to the second part of your question, when did it change? I mean, this is where I suppose when I was in my kitchens phase, it was a lot of shouting and what have you. And I did that sort of thing. Oh, well, I'm just being honest. I'm just being honest. But it wasn't. It was me running my mouth without thinking about it. I was an overgrown little boy. I could shout my mouth off with impunity in most cases. And so I did. I had nobody keeping me in check as such. So I think when I went from, I suppose, brutal honesty to radical candor, there's a big difference. I still do value that honesty, and I am quite proud of the fact that while I can probably talk a glass eye to sleep, let's have it right, I don't lie. I won't sell you a story that's not true, because A, I don't think it's good behavior, but B, intrinsically, I feel like I've let myself down, and I can't have that. And so I've changed my style, I suppose. Now, I've gone from wanting to win a conversation, because that was something I was always very good at. I was always very good at firing back either an insult or an answer or something to cut you down so you couldn't answer, or it just, the louder I shout, the more right I am, kind of thing. I don't do that now. So I suppose I view it more as, what do I want to get out of this conversation? And if I can be honest, again, I sort of say I'll win a conversation. There was no winner in there, and I never felt good on the other side of it. It was just the argument had stopped, and I had, maybe a bit of bragging rights on some ridiculous level. But that's what I sort of say about, a weak person's interpretation of strength. That was just me blundering about, mouthing off. Now, I suppose, I want to get something from the conversation. And it's not even compromise, a solution. I've also learned the power of taking a pause. Because again, as part of this, I've also done quite a bit of mindfulness that's been healthy. But like now, I'll use my daughter as an example. I mean, she's feisty. We've raised her to stick up for herself. So when her and I clash, do you know what I mean? There's that bit when you're heightened, you're not thinking on logic levels. You're thinking straight out attack. So I've sort of said, right, we're not going anywhere now. Let's take a break. Let's back in 1 hour and finish this conversation, so that it's not, we know it's not forgotten. We're going to be dealing with it in a bit. We've had time to ruminate and come down and what have you, and then come back with a better mind. So it's little things like that, and sometimes learning to shut up.
Yeah.
That was the thing that I always struggled with. Just sometimes a bit of silence, a bit of time in a conversation can work wonders.
Absolutely.
Whereas I'm backpedaling to get some quick answer that I think is really, like some Hollywood one-liner, when in reality it serves no purpose other than me playing to my own ego and trying to make myself come across sounding clever. When in reality it solves nothing. Absolutely. So I suppose that's a bit of a long answer to your question.
No, fantastic.
But yeah, I think
yeah, you landed the plane there. Thank you. And again, with the little bit of delay that we have in the conversation, I'm trying to be very mindful of when to step in and not cut you off. And so I'm letting you answer these questions. You're doing a great job. I'm sitting here and reminiscing on so many things in my past and thinking about actions that I take now. And as you're speaking about taking that moment, I've taken pride in my life. I can count on 2 hands the amount of times that I have lost my shit, like completely lost it, out of control, anger. I can count on 2 hands. I remember them all specifically. And that's one thing that I've always advocated for, is if I start to feel any sort of anger or anything that feels like it may be out of control, I give myself space. So I love that you said that. And it's reminding myself as well, and hopefully reminding the listeners out there that it's okay to take a moment and let your rational mind process. And you can think about the ways that you want to articulate the things that you're feeling prior to getting back. And what's the end goal of the conversation, right? Is it to let the ego step up and put your dukes up? Or is it to convey your message and be understood and feel understood? So yeah, that's great advice. And I want to shout out some of the people that are in here right now. Your boy B, I see you out there. Welcome in. He's giving us a salute. Lauren Marie says, love this. Frank Chat, staying tuned. Thank you for being here, Lauren. We appreciate you. Your boy B, sorry we missed these on the spot, but your boy B, he's got some clapping hands. He says, well said, sir. And he says, an era to just listen and a shoulder to cry on sometimes is all that's needed. Oh, he says an ear. He corrected himself. Sorry. An ear to, let me just read that whole thing again. Sorry, your boy B. An ear to just listen and a shoulder to cry on is sometimes all that is needed. Absolutely. Absolutely. And taking those moments to just, it's a good thing. It is so good for you. And think about the end result. What am I trying to get out of this?
Yeah.
Gosh. A lot of people just want to, prove their point, but
Yeah.
having that mindset of knowing that the conversation can be mutually beneficial. Listen, I understand where you're coming from. This is how I see it. This is why I see it this way. And there can be a mutual agreement at the end of the road. And, I want to talk a little bit about not only these kids that you're counseling. I hope you got a little bit more time.
Yeah. As long as you need.
Okay, cool. All right, fantastic. I want to talk about these kids in this day and age because back when we grew up, we didn't have screens in front of us 24/7. I don't know within your jurisdiction, in New Zealand, if it is mandatory to have iPads and laptops and all these technologies that these kids are completely sucked into. But I know when I go out to even a restaurant, the first thing you look around and not only are all the adults sitting around on their phones, but the kids have tablets in front of them that are running cartoons just to shut the kids up. And
Yeah.
I'm curious if you see a relationship between kids that are constantly playing video games and are on tablets with tantrums and misbehaving and feeling emotionally overwhelmed all the time versus the kids that are in sports and are partaking in more physical outdoor activities. Is that something that can you touch those two together and say, yes, there is a direct correlation between the two, or is it otherwise?
I don't know about a direct correlation, but I think there's definitely a lot in that. Insofar, I suppose the anger that you see out of a lot of kids who spend so much time on screens, because I don't know, you hear the way some of them talk to each other because there's no accountability on the other end. So it's this in-person skills that seem to be lacking now. You'll see, oh, well, I'll give you for example, like when we were at school, you might get picked on in a day. You'd go home and at least that was your sanctuary. Whereas now it's insidious. It carries on because all through the medium of a phone or a device, So there's that. And some of the things that I see written, you wouldn't you wouldn't cross the street to somebody and say these things. Well, you might do, but you'd probably expect a smack in the mouth for it. Which, if I'd have done that when I was this age, crossover, I'm going to this, that, and the other, you motherfucker, whatever it is, then I'd expect some pretty swift retribution. So that's taken out of the picture. Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether it's the phones that are doing it, but I think the tolerance level nowadays is way shorter. A lot of kids seem to go from 0 to 100 very, very quick. I mean, you look at the look of horror on a kid's face when you try and take a phone out of their, whether it's the device itself or the fact that we've got so wrapped into having them. And you even see, and it's so sad, I've seen before, like mum's pushing a buggy down the screen, and you've got the kid, the baby, looking at a phone, and so, well, we're breeding, they're developing with this in their hand as though it's a necessary thing. In the same way, they might not be smoking now, but they've all got phones in their pockets.
Yeah.
It's different. You're just trading one for the other. And yeah, I think there's a big part of that. I do also think a lot of parents that I see nowadays, they're either too frightened of putting in boundaries, or they want to be more like a mate than a parent. And so there's that aspect to it as well. Kids need boundaries. Kids they might not appreciate it in the time, and they probably won't say that. But down the track, they'll appreciate the boundaries, knowing where they are. But it's, again, to come back to, like I was saying before, the parent that says, fix my kid. It's not a one-stop shop. This has got to be a continuous. This has to be a regular thing, rather than, just throwing an iPad towards a kid because you don't want to parent or because you're stuck in your own little world. I think it's too simplistic to just be able to say that it's devices and socials that are the problem. I mean, they are a convenient thing to hang your hat on as a problem, and it is a problem. But I think it's a bit naive to suggest it's the only thing. I think, parenting plays its part also. And, things like sports, as you say, for an example, it shows kids how to interact with each other, how to, especially a team game, there's, well, not necessarily a hierarchy as such, but there's like a chain of command, and you're fitting around people. And I suppose it's getting the blood pumping, it's getting the senses working, rather than this tunnel vision like Gorpin and I don't know, this overstimulation just in your mind on one particular aspect.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to touch on that too, because I feel as though with these short form videos that we're all just completely with TikTok and Facebook and Instagram, these short form videos, let me back up. During our childhood, throughout a day, you might feel 3 to 5 different emotions throughout a day. You might feel some happiness. You might feel depressed for a moment. There might be a moment of anxiety or anger. But I think cycling through those with these short form videos consistently makes those so easily accessible. Like you were saying, going 0 to 100 so quickly. And this is just my perception, and maybe it's completely off. But when you're cycling through, say, TikTok, and you're seeing one thing that is making a tear roll down your face, and then the next is enraging you, and the next one is making you so happy that you're excited to get into the kitchen to cook, or whatever it is that you're into, all of these different emotions. And a lot of people are on their phones 6 to 8 hours of screen time per day watching these. You can drive down the road, look to your left, and see that somebody's just mindlessly going through these things. But also getting these sparks, these little sparks of emotions. I feel as though that just brings, how do I put this? I feel like that allows you to access those emotions so much easier and such a grand scale because of how often that you're feeling them, that it's really becoming a detriment to the younger generations who don't know how to necessarily, they don't know how to handle or mitigate those emotions yet at such a young age. And they're feeling the full spectrum of them throughout their lives.
Yeah, I'd say that. I mean, what you just said there, I mean, the level of dysregulation that you would have just in a 5-minute scrolling session on, whichever your favorite site might be, there's definitely that sort of aspect to it. And the fact that it's, I don't know, it's like some little sugar hit that you keep going back for more. Like the experiment, the rats tapping on the cocaine pedal and things like that. I mean, the amount of kids I see now, that have offended and done committed crimes, and it's like, oh, well, what for? Because I'm bored. As though that's justification for this. And I mean, to a lesser level, you would say the same about the socials. It's seeking that next step, though. That, oh, bored. You can just throw it away, or you can stick with it. But I suppose looking for a version of a bigger high, maybe. I don't know if that's the right simile to use, but yeah, when I was a kid, all right, you might look forward to your favorite show coming on at such a time. You watch the TV, and then you might go out and play on your bike afterwards. There was an equilibrium to mental state. Whereas now, yeah, you've got this thing, this box in your pocket that's bang, 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 and it's continuous. And yeah, I mean, I'm seeing like there's kids that will spend, say, on a weekend, upwards of 12 hours a day, hunched over a device, not going out. And so I suppose the sensory overload for something like that. I mean, I'm, not a neuroscientist, but I can imagine it's off the chart.
Yeah. Yeah. It's got to be. I'm just lucky that not only did I grow up, and I sit here on a podcast with screens in front of me all day long, editing things, so it's like, it's really just the kettle calling the pot black here, but it's a part of what I'm trying to do, which is convey a message of people helping people, and I just really feel as though having people like yourself who are advocating and counseling younger generations and taking that on in full-fledged and being that person to not only because you're teaching yourself as you go. So I'm sure that there's new doors opening consistently for yourself. And then that can be relayed. And that's that wisdom and experience that you were talking about. Like you're now carrying wisdom through your own experiences, but it took you finding the knowledge in order to uncover the wisdom within those experiences. And I want to talk to you a little bit about your purpose and how you found your purpose. But for people out there, or maybe, if people are, say, parents, or maybe they're counselors themselves, what advice do you have for somebody that is looking and searching for purpose? Maybe a child, maybe adolescent, maybe an adult. From your own personal experience, how would somebody find their purpose?
Wow, that's a massive question.
That's a big one.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I don't know. I suppose for myself, it took a long time. So I think first off, it'll be there if you keep looking. I mean, if we can come back to kids, a lot of times we talk to them as though they're little achievement machines, and like you rightly pointed out before, we forget what it's like to be a kid. Now, a lot of pressure on kids to achieve these days. I mean, when I left school, you didn't really need a degree. Yeah, there was that option, but you didn't need a degree to get a relatively decent job and work your way up. Whereas now, things like that are often prerequisites. So there's so much pressure on kids to do. And, is that, oh, you've not passed this exam or whatever? I don't know anybody at 16 years old who knows what they want to do for the rest of their life. And I certainly didn't. I think I wanted to be an artist when I was 16 years old. I ended up, working as a chef and what have you for a long time. And I enjoyed that. But I fell out of love with that as well. The point where I am now, that, I feel like I'm in the right space. This really does spin my wheels. But I think keep looking. You might not have the answers now. And as I said, personally, it took me a long time. But I think as well, I got in my own way. For the longest time, I was so sure of my own intelligence, my own, how right I was, that I'd closed my mind off to listening to other viewpoints. So I suppose, listen to people, try things, do things. Like my latest thing that I say the latest thing, 3 years ago, work was just awful. There was a spate of like kids just doing ram race, and we were every day coming into work thinking that today's the day we're gonna hear about a dead kid.
What is a ram raid?
Where you steal a car and drive it through a shop front.
Oh, wow. Jesus.
Yeah,
I'd never heard of that before.
Yeah, there were these kids do this, and it was like their own version of GTA. And
Yeah.
so we were worried about this, and like work, it was very, very stressful. And around that time, I ended up learning to surf. And so on my first lesson, just not drowning took such an effort that all this other stuff went away. And so now, whenever I'm stressed or whatever, I surf.
Mm.
And it's weird insofar as I tend to come back being in the sea with a lot of the answers that I was looking for on the way there. And I guess it does sound a bit twee, but it works for me insofar as I think too often we fall into this pattern of trying to get out of overthinking by thinking some more.
Mm.
Whereas I think for me, it's take a step back, catch a wave, stand in the sea, remind yourself how insignificant you actually are. But then that's when you're open to things coming in. And that's when I've had my best idea. I mean, again, when I come up with episodes for my podcast, a lot of times it's when I've just got out of the sea. I feel more inspired. And again, I know that's not going to be the same for everybody, but I think it's these little things that, in the weirdest of ways, that play their part, even though, who would think surfing and, writing podcast episodes would come together? And yeah, I suppose I've gone off on something a tangent for your original question,
I
but
love it. I love it.
yeah, it does all play its part. I suppose, yeah, we need to get out of the idea that it's task focused. It's A to B to C to D, and life will just happen in these prescribed steps. Life has funny ways of pushing you here, there, and everywhere. Sometimes you might not appreciate it at the time, but as long as you can walk out thinking, what was the lesson? What did I gain from that? Rather than, for the longest time, I had the victim mentality on lock. Something bad would happen. It was always the woe is me self-pity thing. Whereas now, with a bit more hindsight, and I suppose the wisdom that I've been ascribed to, I can look back and think, if only I'd have paid attention at that time, I would have seen, I would have learned from it and moved on. But I was so pig-headed and what have you, that I just kept on doing the same things and expecting a different result, which, as we know, is...
Absolutely. Yeah, well said. I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing so much wisdom and you also have a podcast, and I would love not only for you to come back on this show and share some more with us as we continue down this crazy path of life that everybody's on, and we're all just hanging on as best we can and doing some internal thinking and looking back and reminiscing and finding our own wisdom through experiences. And you have a podcast that I'd like to talk about, and so let's let our audience know what you have, and just give us a breakdown of that.
Okay, well, my podcast is called Social Harmony, Time to Talk.
It's so cool, by the way.
Thank you. Well, it came about quite by accident, really, because originally I had an idea of putting together a men's group, something like that, which, I don't know, I've been to a couple in the past, and I don't know, it's not for me. And then a friend of mine, we actually met on Bumble. I said I was on the apps for a while, and we didn't have a relationship like that, but I thought, this person adds something to my life. So whereas I would normally nice to meet you, see you, never again, I actually stayed in touch insofar as it was, look, not there for either of us, that attraction, but I do enjoy talking with you. And so we originally was going to start a podcast on dating in your 40s and things like that. As it was, she lives miles away, so it logistically couldn't work. So I started on my own. originally I wanted to encourage people, and I still do, to talk, insofar as I, for so long, didn't. And so that bottled up sadness, anger, whatever, it presented, like maladaptive to me. I mentioned I had a phase of self-harming when I was a kid, but there were other behaviors that I think because I didn't feel safe with anyone. I didn't feel I could talk to anybody, any of that. And so I'm not setting out to become, a superstar or anything like that, but it was more, if even one person could hear me talking with somebody and then think, you know what, I know what that guy's talking about, and it helps them, then I'll take that as a win. And so, I mean, it's me, and plus, somebody else will have a talk. And I'll do it as a conversation. It's not just me interviewing somebody per se. It's a back and forth, and I do give a bit of my own story throughout. But yeah, I mean, I'm releasing, I think it's episode 55 on Monday. And yeah, and I've had the chance to speak to some amazing and interesting people, and I'll include yourself in amongst this as well. And I'd love to come back on a future episode as well. This has been great. But yeah, I mean, every guest that I've been on, and Lauren Maria was in the comments earlier on, she's in an episode, a fantastic episode, I must say. She's a really amazing woman. But yeah, every guest I've learned something from. I've enjoyed the conversation with. It's from a kid who wouldn't open up to talk to anybody to now reaching out across the world to talk to everybody I can get in front of. It's been quite the journey. So yeah, I enjoy it. I put a new episode out every Monday at 6 p.m. New Zealand time. I'm hoping later on here or next year rather, to do video. At the moment, I'm still honing my craft. But yeah, I'm enjoying it, and yeah, I get good feedback from people. It's nice to hear that people have heard it. I know, guys that I know out and about, and I'll just see them randomly in the street. Oh, I listened to such and such an episode. I really liked it when you said this. And yeah, it's just nice to do. And it feels like I'm doing something different, just my own little project for myself. But it's not just for myself, but I get a lot out of it as well,
That's great. And I want to give you one of these. I left all the links to everything that you had sent me. So your podcast is there. Your Instagram is there. I just encourage people to go take a listen because, yeah, you have a very unique way of relating to people that I really appreciate because of, like you said, just integrating a lot of your own experiences in life in the conversation. And it's really fun to listen to because of the way that you articulate and tell your stories and self-reflect during the episodes is really interesting. So I encourage anybody to go take a listen to the podcast. It is really good. And I just want to let you know that you did a fantastic job tonight. You did great.
Thank you. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah. And I want to open the door to you, to the People Helping People family. If you're going to be stepping into video podcasting, if you need any help with anything, I'm a message, a phone call, whatever it may be, a text away. And I'm here to help you out in any which way that I can. And if I have any resources within our community it's available to you. So just let me know what you need and we're here for you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you. That's amazing. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And before we let you go, how can our people here at People Helping People best support you? There's a lot of P's.
I just think the usual, listen, share, follow, like, subscribe, all the things. Give us a listen, and any feedback. I genuinely do love, good, bad, or whatever, because, well, we don't improve without it. And so, yeah, I would ask anybody, please give me a listen. Tell me what you think. if anybody wants to come forward to be on the podcast as well for a conversation, please DM me. That's as we do.
Perfect. Yeah. And my calls to action, I hate to say that I'm not good at it. I'm getting even better at those calls to action. So if you guys are watching on YouTube, or if you're watching anywhere other than YouTube, go watch it on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up. And I just want to thank you so much for coming on to the show tonight. This has been an incredible conversation. And before we let you go, is there anything else you'd like to leave with the people?
No, just it is good to talk for yourself, for your body. Ask, have the conversations. It's good for the soul.
Absolutely, ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Mr. Lee David. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, incredible interview. Gosh, I knew it was going to be good too. I knew it was going to be good because I've been listening to his podcast, and he just is very introspective. And, he takes such an honest look and an honest listen to the people that he's talking to. And I don't know if he's directly in front of them or how they do the show, but having him have those conversations, I sit down and listen to others having conversations, trying to learn, right? How to better myself. One of the main reasons, other than helping people with the network that we're building out here, was like, I just want to become a better conversationalist. I don't think that anybody in the world has, I don't want to consider it a weapon, but a more, what is the right word? See, this is what I'm talking about. This is just being human, right? I don't edit anything. This is all live. And having these conversations with people is sharpening the sword of conversation. And I think that is one of the best tools in your tool belt that you can possibly sharpen. So we're here and we're doing so. And I'm learning from my guests, and I'm learning from you guys too. And as Lee had said, leave feedback. It is so important for us to get your feedback. Are there things that you like? Are there things that you don't like? Are there things you'd like to see more of or less of? Those are important, because we are here. We're trying to bring you guys value. And internally, it is helping us in so many different ways, having these conversations and sitting down with brilliant minds. And it is just a fulfilling experience. So I'm happy to be sharing this experience with more people in the world. And I hope that you guys enjoyed the show. Lars Ward, I see out there, by the way, says, great show tonight. Thank you. Appreciate you. It looks like Metropolis 11811 says, made them go outside, not Madame. Oh, I think she's talking about the kids, right? Yes, absolutely. Sorry, I was so involved in the conversation. Sometimes it's hard to acknowledge you guys out there. But I appreciate everybody watching the show. If you haven't already, give us a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, we're live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I'm going to be talking to Lee, and maybe he'll have me on his show if I'm, lucky enough. But I appreciate him taking off his interviewer cap and, sitting with us and answering some questions. So in any event, I love you guys. Thank you for joining us on this incredible episode of People Helping People. And I hope you guys have an incredible Halloween. And I hope you like the new studio. We're doing things. We're having fun. So we'll talk to y'all later. And I think that's it. I love you guys. Deuces.
Yeah. What's everybody fighting for? Why can't people help people? That's the question.